I live here my life. I stay strong, I stay wise. I live here my life. I stay strong, I stay wise. I live here my life. While we wait.
Happy New Year. It is 2021. I'm Arpatrice Bryant, and I'm the host of While We Wait. Thank you for showing up. It is a great day to be alive, and God is still faithful. I'm so glad you're here. Come on in. We have a good discussion today. We are excited about this new year and about this new series called Power Up, Jumpstarting Your Year. And our topic today is decluttering your life, your emotions, and how it correlates with how we have clutter in our homes or how we should declutter. Today's just going to be really, really exciting. I have Michelle Perry back with me on today, and she is a recurring guest. She's really my co-host. She's got great energy, and we flow very nicely together. So I'm excited to have her back. And I'm also happy to have a newfound friend. I was connected by Michelle to Lisa Zawrotny, who is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Before we go over there, I did get a message a few weeks ago, and someone was inquiring about me. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself. It's not even important, but because you asked, I want you to know. I am Arpatrice Bryant. First name is Rashida, but I don't use it. It's Arpatrice Bryant, and I, by profession, am a career coach for seniors 55 and older. I run a senior program in New Haven County, New Haven and Waterbury. And I am a creative producer. I do creative productions. I'm into the entertainment, music field. And I'm a promoter. I promote people, I promote businesses, and I promote good news. And we could definitely use some good news today. And I work to always have something positive and empowering on my lips. That's why I always leave saying, be strong, be wise, keep enhancing your life, because life is worth living. And it really, really is. And it's just how you live it. So thank you, viewers, for coming in. Happy New Year again. Keep coming in. Please share this video so others can be a part of this discussion. And please feel free to comment, because we want to bring your thoughts, your questions, your views into this discussion with my guests. So let's bring Michelle on. I'm very, very happy to have her come back. Hi, Michelle.
Happy New Year. I'm so excited to be back on While We Wait. This is such an awesome show with such incredible content coming this year, and I'm just so honored to be a part.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm grateful that you have come every time. This has been such a blessing, and I'm just really excited about this whole year and the lineup that's happening from today and moving forward. Next week we have Mr. C.L. King, who is one of the things he is a motivational speaker, but his story is absolutely incredible. And moving forward, we're going to be talking about my NACA experience. So for first-time homeowners, I'm going to bring a young lady on, Cassandra Edmonds, who's going to talk about her experience in purchasing her first home through this program. And then in February, we are going to have some Black history discussion, some real good stuff. So make sure you keep coming back every Thursday at 4:30. And if you have a topic that you're interested in discussing, please send me a message. We'll be glad to find someone, or we'll find the information and we'll make it happen. All right. So now I am.
Listeners, put your notifications on so you don't miss an episode, because it is life enhancing and it will change you for the good. So put those notifications on so that you don't miss a show. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And that is on YouTube as well as Facebook. So put those notifications on. Please like and share. Help us get the word out about this very healthy, wholesome, and holistic conversation that happens every Thursday at 4:30 right here while we wait. All right. So now we're ready for Miss Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Happy New Year, ladies. I'm
Happy
great.
New Year.
The crowd goes wild.
Oh,
I am so
stop, stop.
glad. I'm so glad and so honored that you came on, Lisa, to just have a great chat on today. This emotional clutter thing is, emotional clutter can, what I know, it can affect your health, your relationships, how you deal with life, and so much more. And then when we see cycles that continually repeat, that's a sure sign of unresolved issues. So I know we don't have enough time to like dig deep. Perhaps Lisa will come back and do some more. So today is going to be an overview, and let's get started. Lisa, first of all, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Zawrotny. I am a certified stress management and productivity coach, the owner of Positively Productive Systems, the host of the Positively Living podcast, a mom, wife, mom of kids and cats. I think that should be a point of clarification. And someone who is all about simplifying and letting go of that busy badge of honor that we somehow think is important, and getting down to what really matters in life. I help multi passionate entrepreneurs especially, and multitasking caregivers who are often one and the same. I help them do less, live more, and breathe easier, because it's all about making space for what matters, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's why I love you because you're helping me.
And your voice is just so soothing and such a blessing to me. Every time I hear your podcast, every time you go live on Facebook, your voice just brings such, I don't know, soothing comfort. And then I open up to listen to what you have to say, which is incredible content that we're going to get into. But just who you are shines through, and I love it.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for that.
And
Thank you.
and I have to say, Michelle and Lisa, I've talked to you separately, of course, and you sound so much alike to me. So
Yeah, and I told Michelle this when I first heard her. I was like, "Girl, I know about good voices, and you have a good voice, and I really
absolutely.
enjoy listening to you as well." And there is something soothing about certain voices when we listen to them, and I'm grateful that mine
Yes.
can be that for others, because that's a big part of what I'm out to do, is to encourage and to soothe and to comfort and to give hope.
Yes, that's what it's all about. And I see viewers still coming in. Thank you all. Please share this video. This is going to be a great live, and I hope that everyone will benefit from it. As many as we can get it to. Lisa, what's your story? Talk to us. Tell us, how did you get where you are?
Well, I got where I am based on a story of survival mode that I think so many people can appreciate. It started when I was a caregiver for my mom. Actually, it started right around the same time. It's almost like a dual point that it started at. I was pregnant with my son when we moved my mom into our home. She had Alzheimer's, and I cared for her through the life cycle of this disease until she passed away nearly 5 years later. I was pregnant with my son, and then I was also pregnant with my daughter. So I went through two pregnancies. I had a toddler and an infant, and a mother who was losing who she was as a person to a dreadful disease. And I actually just did an episode on my podcast, the first of the year, sharing a bit more about this story and what it meant and what I went through. But suffice it to say that it was true survival mode, and the clutter and the chaos that piled up in my life as a result of this
Mhm.
was significant. And I was at a crossroads once she passed away, and the need to care for her was no longer. And I thought, what do I do now? And my first instinct was, oh, I do I need to get a job because we had financial difficulties? What do I need to do? And something spoke to me, and I listened, paid attention, Michelle, right? And it just said, you don't need to do anything. You need to clear space. You need to
Wow.
clear out. And so that's what I started to do. And I absorbed every kind of book on organizing that I could. And it was something that I was already inclined toward. I was a very organized person, even keeping track of all the littles. I had books and journals from my kids, and I had, about when they ate and when they slept. And I had books on my mom, all the doctor's visits. I was very organized, generally speaking, but there was so much that got away from me in that experience. So many bins of paperwork and just clutter, physical clutter everywhere. But also, I hadn't cared for me. I
Wow.
hadn't dealt with the anger and the emotions and all the things that I was going through. And just losing my mom before I lost my mom, losing her
Right.
repeatedly over and over again. There were just so much that I went through. And yeah, in that moment, I was like, okay, I need to take the steps to deal with this. Now, I didn't deal with it all at the same time,
Sure.
but I started by, okay, there are bins of things I haven't even looked at or touched, unopened mail, things like that. And I just started to work through each of these things, really clearing a path. Ultimately, the way I describe it is decluttering inside and out. I cleared a path in my life. And not
That's
only
good.
that, but I embraced what was meaningful. It was like, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. What's important? Being with my family. My kids are okay. We're together. We love each other. What do I want next? And that really began the story of what I do today, because every step I took, I figured out another tip, another trick, another meaningful point that I think, especially people in the organizing industry, I think they're coming around to it, but it didn't
Mhm.
always feel that way to me, that they really needed to understand what we can go through in survival mode, and how to look at things differently. I explored all of that, and I was like, okay, now I need to share it.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah. I just, because I am a caregiver, I just want to, so let me make a statement and I'll let you expound on it.
Yeah.
I believe there are so many emotions that you deal with. Well, you do. And even guilt.
Yeah.
And I know you know this because you've done it, but sometimes people can make you feel bad because of how you feel, which is real. And then sometimes you can feel guilty because you feel that way. And so I guess what I'm working to get to is to help people understand that if you feel a certain way, it's okay. That's real. That is how you feel. And I think you have to find a way to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's such an important point, because and I what was coming up as you were describing that, and trying to apply it to what I experienced and what I've seen with other caregivers, is this idea that many times those on the outside, those that haven't been through it in some capacity, or aren't like even connected to it, because I think those who are in therapy, or therapists, and people who are helping and doing groups, I think they have a better understanding. But there are many people who just aren't involved in this aspect of life. They don't understand,
Mhm.
and their well-intentioned approach tends to be uh, patient centric, or what I would say is focused more on the person being cared for rather than
Right.
the caregiver. So I've, as a result, become a caregiver advocate, because, and what are we seeing now? I mean, studies are showing, we're seeing that caregivers are frequently dying earlier, that they're the ones who are suffering, because this
Wow.
is such a difficult road. So many times people don't understand that. So if you are a caregiver, if it's coming up, if you're in the middle of it, if you've been it, whatever you felt, it's more than okay.
Yeah,
It's and you know what? We get to feel what we get to feel regardless, right? But also from those of us who know, it's absolutely understandable. And you're right. A lot of people were like, how's mom? How's mom? And I'm like, anybody want to know how I'm doing?
that is
And
so
right.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Can I
It's so
jump in here
true.
for a second? I just wanted to
Please.
add to the conversation. Number one, emotions are indicators, and you are allowed to feel the way you feel because it's real. So
Yeah.
honor it, and it's valid regardless of what anyone has to say about it. And Lisa, I would love for you to go in a little bit more detail because I know that there's so many emotions that come with your experience that I know Patrice, Brian, I always forget what to call you. that so many caregivers can relate to, right? Because it's almost like that forgotten person in the room, right? You're there, but you're sort of invisible because you're, whatever.
Mhm.
But there's emotions that collect within you, right? And there's psychological thoughts and emotions and narratives and self-talk. All of those things get jumbled up inside. That's what I think of when I think of emotional clutter. But I know you're the expert, and I know that part of your purposeful living is about clearing that path emotionally and mentally. So talk to us a little bit more about what is emotional clutter and how do you clear a path? How do you get clarity?
Yeah, that's a great
Great
question.
question. Yeah.
Let's start with like I just decided to make a list, because we're talking about this today. Let's start with a list and then we'll be able to apply it back to, have you experienced this as a caregiver? Probably yes, but you don't have to be a caregiver to have experienced these things. So
True.
emotional clutter, you have to think about grief and trauma and worry and fear and doubt and overwhelm, which just represents like all of those things happening. But more specifically, signs or causes that you might experience is that feeling of not enoughness, that comparison, that coming from other people's expectations, worry, the collective grief that we are feeling, I think now in the world, uh,
Absolutely.
right? Distraction and boredom, and then of course subsequently the numbing that comes from that. I'm going to mention overwhelm again because it's the catch-all phrase. In all seriousness, it just the feeling like there's just too much for your systems to handle, too much for your bandwidth. I wrote down decision fatigue because, just feeling like there's so many things that you have to decide. And that's what I work a lot with clients, right? In any form of decluttering is like, okay, I have this kind of filter going on, this kind of space that I'm working with, what that I want in it, what belongs, what doesn't. There are decisions to be made, right? And also too, when it comes to living your life and doing new projects and getting excited, and we're in January and we're doing all the things and there's New Year's resolutions, which I personally don't buy into. I have other thoughts on that, but
So do
nonetheless,
I.
right? Okay. Big fan of word of the year, by the way. But it's all for me. It's all about simplifying. But in general, this is what we're facing, and we're also facing information overload,
This is true.
and that's a big part of the cause that plays almost like a cohort, if you will, with the emotional clutter that we have, being afraid, fearing failure, this big one, right? And just and busyness. Now I don't know if I'd call it emotional clutter. See, sometimes some of this, it's like it's not like this definitive delineation, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like these blending, or where one kind of causes the other, where they play together, and then the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. But
Mhm.
those are all of the things that sort of came up for me that I see with clients. Does that?
Also, energy. Talk to me about this, Lisa, because I know when we're clearing a path and we're making plans and decisions about what bucket to put what things in and how to
Mhm.
organize and clear the path just really spoke to me today. I love that metaphor and that phrasing.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I'm grieving, right?
Yeah.
It's my dog, my
Yes.
Bachi. We had to say goodbye,
Yeah.
but I noticed my energy shifted. And a lot of my decisions are taking a little bit longer. There is that energy decrease,
Mhm.
and it's not overwhelm and it's not numbing, but it's sort of like nothingness, right? And so I have to be much more intentional about my decisions every day.
Yeah.
And not forcing the energy, but making sure that I am sort of getting that intention pumped up almost. And so when someone has emotional, decision fatigue, or their caregiver is just draining, for that day, or there's so many judgments coming at you and you have all of these emotions going around, what are some strategies that people can use to sort of get back to a focus of, okay, how do I clear a path out of this?
Right. Well, the way that I liken it, especially when it's not as obvious. I mean, you are very aware. So you're like, okay, I'm grieving. There's something different. And awareness, by the way, is a great strategy to start. First of all, understanding it, because when you understand this is happening, when you acknowledge it and you get curious about it, that's so, so important, right? I see both of you nodding emphatically, because when we're curious, we leave the judgment out of it. The first step is, okay, what's going on? And let's be curious about it so that we're not adding to the judgment and the shame, and like, it's not a what's wrong with me, it's a what's going on. And the way that I liken something, especially like grief, if it's whether it's obvious or not, is when you have your cell phone and there's an app in the background that is draining your battery, using resources more so. And so then you're like, oh, okay, this drained a lot faster than I expected today. What's going on? And it's like, oh, I didn't turn off, something in the background. It was still right. For example, yeah, actually, I've been thinking a lot about Clubhouse and the drain that offers. It's also can be good. That's a great example of something that can be good, but it can also be draining. But getting back to the specific techniques, okay. So for starters, it's awareness, and that's your number one productivity tip, by the way. Always is awareness. It's knowing who you are, how much you can handle. And sometimes that is trial and error, by getting to the overwhelm, getting to the burnout and going, okay, that was too far. And then backing up and saying, all right, next time I have to stop here. Next time I have to set boundaries, which, by the way, is another tip, right? It's like when you understand your limits. And this is a great example of when you're decluttering and organizing, this is how it applies, whether it's a limit of, I have this much room in a drawer, or it's a limit to, I have this much energy that I can handle before I need to nap, or I just really start to have these signs where there's too much going on, where I snap at people and I get resentful and I get angry and I'm not handling it well. Me personally, if I want to walk around being the kind of person I want to be, which is actually kind and loving and helpful, the kind of person that lets someone go ahead of me at the supermarket, and pays it forward in the drive-through line and things like that, I need certain things. I need sleep. I need to know what my limits are. So that awareness is huge. Asking what belongs to you is a huge one. We often take ownership of what we shouldn't. There's a saying out in, social media land, and which I absolutely love. I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's this idea of what weighs you down is not always yours to carry.
Wow.
Right? So you really have to ask. And again, this is being curious, asking questions, awareness of, is this for me to hold on to? Worry is a great example of that. Is that yours to carry, especially when we worry on behalf of others?
I'm just listening to what you're saying, even with the social media platform and even understanding how it was some of the ways that it's used, and watching documentaries that really go in depth about it, and just understanding that sometimes you do take on what does not, it's not good, it's not healthy. You can have the sense of, well, only 2 people liked my comment, so I'm not enough, I'm not popular. So all of these types of things can happen, and that's really something that we don't have to carry, because it's really, the way they explain it, a lot of that is false.
Yeah.
So, but the people that get the adrenaline rush when they hear a notification like, oh, somebody responded, and they talk about all these things are intentional. So that those are needless uh, pains that we bear in many cases.
Exactly. Thinking about, what you have energy for, it's like, and what you want to accomplish when you're very clear on your goals.
Mm,
You're gonna be like, well, I don't, it's like, then you could get very clear and be like, okay, I don't have time for that, or that I can't let that be a thing. That's a distraction, understanding. When I was thinking about this, the words to honor Michelle today are pay attention, right? When you're paying attention to where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So it's like, so when something's happening and you're feeling this, you're getting distracted, you're doing the comparison on social media, all of these things that are considered emotional clutter, uh, is that where you want to be spending your precious time, your precious energy, the resources that you have? By the way, I think it's really important to jump in quickly to say, when we've been talking about emotions and feelings and how they're affecting us and what do we do with them and how do we declutter them. But I wanted to identify the concept of clutter real quick
thank
so
you.
that we're all on the same page.
Yes.
And my favorite quote from Peter Walsh is, clutter is not just the stuff on your floor, but anything that gets in between you and the way you want to be living.
Mm. Say
Okay.
that
I
again,
love when
please.
you say that. You have to repeat it. I love when you say that.
Right. Okay. So, and
Please
again,
repeat,
I,
please
I
repeat
think I
that.
have it about right. It's not quite paraphrasing. I'm pretty close to having it down now, but clutter
Okay.
is not just the stuff on your floor, but anything that gets in between you and the way you want to be living. How do you want to
Wow.
live your life? So what's great about that is sometimes there can be people who say, oh, that's clutter, but it's not to you. And you can identify it that way as well. And I love that little twist on it, because we're always talking about what's clutter and decluttering. And I'm absolutely all for clearing the path. But sometimes there's something that other people think is clutter, but that's not in your way. So
Okay.
it's not clutter.
And
So
that speaks to your system as well, where it's very value based. It's very
yes.
personalized and very intentional. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. It's so important because none of this is one size fits all.
No,
Right?
never.
No one, even fellow caregivers don't walk the same path,
True that. So
right?
true.
Now we have enough a similarity, enough empathy that we've built, enough understanding that we can reach out and hold each other's hands, and we can honor what each other is going through. And that's a big part of what I do, is saying, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your capacity is. I
Mm,
don't know what your limits are. But again, so going back to those limits, when you know that, you say, okay, it's like budgeting, right? You're budgeting your energy. You're budgeting your bank account. I have X amount of dollars. It's like, I can remember going shopping with my mom and be like, oh, I really like that. Looking at the price tag, I'm like, I don't like it that much, like, well, it's the same thing about, where are you spending your time and energy? Is that where you want to be spending it? Because it's a limited resource.
oh my
And I
goodness.
love I love your what you said about deleting those things that are sort of running in the background.
Yep.
Because one thing I've done during this past week is unsubscribe to a
Oh, yeah.
lot of emails. And for me, mentally, that freed up so much space, right? And
Yeah.
so you're so right about, it clears the path when you can delete things. And even if you don't delete them, put them on mute for a while. There's some things on my timeline,
Mhm.
with today's events going on. There's a lot out there and a lot of emotions that don't belong to me. But
Sorry.
hey, she's back with the little one.
This
Hi.
was my wonderful interruption.
Yes.
Okay.
She's so
Aw.
cute and so big too.
Oh my gosh.
But muting people on your timeline, you don't have to unfollow, you don't have to delete all
That's
the
right.
time to clear the path, but muting helps that background battery sort of refresh for you.
Yeah, and you can do that, 30 days at a time. And this is the kind of thing where we wait and see, if something is coming up, or you're seeing something where you're like, I don't want to absorb that. I don't want to take that in. That is not energy. That's not mine to carry. It's not energy that I want. And sometimes, like for me, there are some things that I do want to carry because I want to be with my fellow human and I want to love and support. But I also know that I have a limit because of like, how emotional I get, that I need to have a cutoff so that I can keep the energy I need to show up and to help the way that I know I can help, if that makes sense.
So because of time, I want to cut corners. There's one thing I wanted to, I know that when there is physical clutter,
Mhm.
it also correlates with what's going on a lot of times. So speak to us in regards to that.
Okay. So when you have your mental clutter and your physical clutter, I say that it can reflect and affect
Okay.
both. Okay. It's really a two-way street because sometimes the clutter that you have surrounding you represents, a discombobulated mind, basically, like you have all the things, there is the overwhelm. Sometimes it's the excitement of, not knowing what to decide next and wanting all the things and to do all the things, and the multi-passionate excitement that can happen. Sometimes it's the I've completely overextended myself. And then, and it can be from a practical standpoint, it can simply be that you have so much going on that you can't get to the habits that are required to keep items in check. You can have physical clutter, not because you don't have a home for everything, but that you're not putting them back in their home. Laundry, anyone?
Very
Right?
true.
Right.
That's very true.
So again, it's not that it's necessarily clutter in the sense of you have to figure out what to do with this. It's more like that gets into the habits and systems. That's another part of what I coach, where you're not allowing yourself the time, the bandwidth to complete your task loops. So this is how they play together. The other thing too is that so it's affecting and reflecting. Sometimes when you see the outward clutter, it can be just like with emotions. It can be a sign where you're like, oh, why is that going on? Well, and then you ask, okay, so it's like, oh, well, I had a big project. I was meeting a deadline. It's going to be temporary.
Mhm.
And this weekend, I'll be able to put these things away and kind of square things away. Because you know what? Things slide. But if it's a kind of thing where you are just clearing a path to get to the couch every night and you're like walking through your house like this, then you might want to say, okay, wait, now I really need to dig deeper and figure out what's going on. And it could be that you have, it's like when you redirect, roots or energy or whatever, and maybe
Mhm.
you did have a new big project, or, when this happens when people have big life transitions, babies and starting a business and things like that. It can also happen due to grief and trauma, where you need that time to go inward and to heal and to process and to rest more and to do those things, so you're not getting to the stuff, but you can use what's out there, the clutter that you're seeing, as an indicator,
Mhm. Mhm.
and again, be curious about it. And then the other thing too is that it's never a bad idea to say, could I use less of this? Because once you have less, then the habit that you need, the time that you need, the process that you need to get it back in its home and back in its place is going to be that much quicker. So again, the distribution of energy will be that much faster.
Energy.
Yeah.
And lastly, and both of you, please express. We started this conversation before. Um, there's a lot going on in the world, and this affects us all. There's an emotional influence. I believe there's even a physical influence. If it rests on us that heavily. But we've got COVID, we've got racism, and I don't talk politics, but I think out of everything I saw yesterday, I had to stop and say, what are we leaving our children? What kind of world are we leaving for our youth? And it is so important for us to train them to be able to maneuver through all of this so they can be successful. I think that's where my mind automatically went after I said, oh my God, where are we? But just how does one process that? There's so much that goes on, and you said the word a couple of times, but you can totally get overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. A big part of that is knowing how much do you want to absorb and knowing what it's doing to you, being very
Yes.
cognizant and very aware. For me personally, it's also making sure that there are things going on in the world. I am very diligent about my resources, where I get
Mm,
my information from,
yes.
when I get it from. And this actually it ties back into this idea of social media and notifications and things like that, is make sure it's up to you,
Mm,
because we get so much info. I mentioned earlier on that a big part of the overwhelm and the emotional clutter and things like that ties into information overload, things that come in at us. That's passive information coming at us. And it really does feel like that, especially
absolutely.
yesterday. That information, I mean, you do feel it in your body. I feel it now talking about it. My heart aches.
Yes. Yes.
And so you have to say, okay, what do I need to know versus what can I stop so that I can recover and heal? And how do I control the influx of information? If I leave you with anything, not only for this, but in general, when it comes to emotional clutter and information, is you being in control, because there are very few things we have that we can control in this world, but how we receive information and how it comes into us is one of them.
That's really good, and I do that. So I'm glad that you brought that out. I may watch the news to get the gist of what's going on, but I don't absorb it all day long. Like
Exactly.
I don't follow it all day long. It can just be too much.
Yep.
Michelle, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, just to, I mean, agree, echo, yes. But also it's what Lisa was talking about the mirroring and being curious and asking those right questions. But for me, it's also about guarding and protecting myself, which is part of my self-care,
Mhm.
and utilizing and implementing that superpower that we all have, which is choice. I choose when I will input certain types of information and from where, checking, fact checking and checking your resources to make sure they're valid and up to date,
Mhm.
where they're coming from, trusted sources, and that kind of thing. Getting
Yep.
curious about what comes up in my response. So I pay attention to when I read an article, when I see a video, when I see an image, what is coming up for me, paying attention to that so I can choose what meaning I'm going to attach to it. And it's really about implementing that superpower of choice in all areas of our life, especially ones that hit in that emotional arena, so we don't become overwhelmed and we don't have that emotional clutter, and utilizing a lot of the strategies that Lisa was talking about.
That's good. I'm listening to what you said, Michelle. So the flip side of that is and it's something that I do as well. Sometimes you have to find something even mindless or something humorous on TV or something that kind of just brings you down here. So
Yes, and
every
I'm so sad they took The Office off. That was my go-to just laugh, and The Office is no longer available on Netflix, and I don't want to pay for it. But that was one strategy I used, was some mindless, humorous television. I don't watch
yes,
a lot of television though, so for me that was a good outlet. Sometimes it's reading,
Mhm.
journaling, taking a walk in nature, whatever it
yes,
is that will help that clear the path, that will help you to start to clear that path
Yep.
and get curious about what's going on with you. Just like Lisa said, I love some of the strategies you expressed today, Lisa. What I would love, because I know we're coming on time,
Mhm.
if you would just tell people where they can find you, because I know
yes.
you've got so much more. You've got systems and your whole philosophies and podcasts and all the things.
And I'm
No,
hoping that she'll come back anyway. But please tell us.
I would be happy to come back. Come
Awesome.
find me and hang out with me, and then I will come back and then come back and hang out with me here. That would be wonderful. You can, of course, find me at my website, all the things at positivelyproductive.com. But if you hang out on social media and you want a safer place where there will be positivity and hope and light and encouragement and a realistic view of life, then you can find me at Positively Productive on Facebook or positively_Lisa on Instagram. And of course, I welcome you to listen to the Positively Living podcast. That would be wonderful.
And I'll make sure I don't have my behind the scenes guide today to put the information in, but I'll make certain I go back to put that information so people can find you.
Mhm.
And if you guys, my viewers, if you remember Michelle Perry, she has her book, and we are constantly pushing that out there. The Pebble in My Shoe. It's a
Yes.
great read, and I'm just so grateful that you all came on today. And I certainly do want you to come back, Lisa, because we just touch stuff, just kind of, but we need this. I believe I need it. People need it, because it's all about how do I live my best life? What tools can I get to live my best life? I believe the majority of people really do want to live a better and a greater life. So I thank you all. I thank you, Michelle. I thank you, Lisa, for coming on. I'm so very grateful to you guys, and we will continue to pray for our nation,
Yeah.
and release positive energy out, because a lot of people are really just dealing with things. So thank you so much, guys.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Such an honor.
Thank you so much. And we will see you next time. To my viewers, I thank you so much for stopping by while we wait, as we just touched on an overview with our guest, Lisa Zawrotny, on decluttering your lives, and just finding some quick tools. She talked about making a list. She talked about being aware. Michelle talked about your choices. So even if you missed it, you can always go back and listen again, just to grab those quick tools that will assist you. I did say that we are praying for our nations. I am certainly praying for our nation. Uh, there's so much going on. There's some good things happening as well that's being overshadowed by a lot of the other stuff. But we are certainly praying for our nation. Praying for peace is a big thing, and praying for healing of our nation, and physical healing, emotional healing, and that racism will stop, and that we will have unity in our nations, in our lives, in our homes. And one of the things that I would just like to say, I started that way, but to really, even if you don't have children, I'm certain you know some child, and I know we're not really together right now because of COVID, but if we can, as a support system, be a pour into young ones, and help them with their tomorrows, that will be huge. We need to train them how to respond, how to think, how to maneuver, because life is not always what we want it to be. But powerful people learn how to, with life right there, how to overcome. And that's something next week we'll be talking about, overcoming diversity. So please show up next week. We'll have Mr. C.L. King with us of the C.L. King Group Incorporated, and it's going to be another great conversation. Thank you so much for coming. God is still faithful. Remember, be strong, be wise, and keep enhancing your life, because life is worth living. God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Stay wise. I live enhanced. I stay strong. I stay wise. I live enhanced.